Love having him as one of the highlights of every year's summit. He is the host of Fox News and Commentary, which is heard daily on hundreds of radio stations. He's also a columnist for FoxNews.com and makes regular appearances on the Fox News channel. He's the author of 3 books, the most recent being God Bless America, which is a compilation of actual evidence exposing the Obama administration's war on religious liberty. He's been awarded the Edward R. Murrow Award, an Associated Press Mark Twain Award, and the National Religious Broadcasters Board of Directors Award. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Todd Starnes.
These are the days of America, brother to brother, hand in hand. These are the days of
My goodness. Hello. And it is great. I bring you greetings from the Fox News corner of the world, and it is an honor to hang out with some great Americans here in Washington. Well, before I begin my remarks, I want to issue a warning, especially to those of you who might suffer from microaggressions. It's about to get a little politically incorrect up in here. And as I promised you on my radio show this morning, I'm about to shuck it to the cob, as they say down in Arkansas. Now, look that up. Google it, media. Now, several years ago, when I first had the honor of coming to be here and to speak with you, I told you that I was one of those people that President Obama referred to back in 2007, one of those bitter clingers. And today, years later, I want to tell you something. I'm still proud to call myself a gun-toting, chicken-eating, Bible-clinging son of a Baptist, and I'm not bitter. I'm blessed beyond measure. Now, I've been in New York City at Fox News for more than a decade, living among the indigenous liberal population of Brooklyn, and many people ask me, Todd, why do you subject yourself to such harsh living conditions? And I tell them that to truly understand the American liberal, I needed to study them in their natural habitat. But there was a problem. My cover was blown the other day. Apparently, my vegan neighbors caught me drinking a jug of sweet tea and smoking a pork butt. And folks, I want you to imagine nearly getting trampled by a thundering herd of vegetarian hipsters stampeding to their safe spaces. They can move mighty fast in those skinny jeans. I want you to know something this morning, and if you hear nothing else, I want you to hear this. You have a friend at the Fox News corner of the world, and I consider it a sacred honor to be able to write for you and to broadcast my radio commentaries for you. And I hope that you will take advantage of all the resources that are available at toddstarnes.com. And after my remarks, I would be honored to meet you and to sign a copy of my book, God Bless America. Friends, we are living in very dangerous times. Liberty is under assault. Our freedoms passed down from one generation to the next are in jeopardy. A recent study by Pew Research found nearly 40% of millennials support limitations on free speech. Troubling times for the land of the free, the home of the brave. President Obama promised to fundamentally transform the United States of America, and ladies and gentlemen, he fulfilled that campaign promise. In less than 8 years, this president has turned the most exceptional nation on the planet into a vast wasteland of perpetually offended snowflakes. We've gone from the greatest generation to the entitlement generation. Instead of creating and innovating, many Americans are hunkered down in their safe spaces, waxing poetically about gender fluidity and taking selfies and debating which lives matter and which lives do not. The country's gone plumb nuts, folks. Franklin Graham said we're close to a moral tipping point, that there is a deep-seated antagonism and hostility towards Christianity. Consider the evidence. Right is wrong, wrong is right. The Supreme Court redefined what God defined. The nation has become a killing field for Islamic radicals. The president refuses to even acknowledge the name of the enemy. Our nation has been invaded. Our government provides sanctuary for illegals who would do harm to our citizens. In recent days, we have seen Christian Americans hauled into court and thrown into jail, bullied and slandered by those who preach tolerance and diversity. It has become open season on gun-toting Bible clingers in America. Just this morning, I wrote a column about the football team at the U.S. Military Academy. The team is now under investigation because they were caught praying in the privacy of their locker room. Video was posted online, and that prompted a complaint from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Under investigation for prayer. Folks, if George Washington had been a general in President Obama's military, he would have been court-martialed and hauled off to jail. Our public schools have been turned into radical indoctrination centers for the left, leading the charge in massive assaults on the family. A lawsuit filed this week by the Alliance Defending Freedom should alarm every parent in America. A group of girls say their privacy was sacrificed for the sake of a boy who identifies as a girl. They were exposed to all sorts of debauchery in the locker room, and the school district turned a blind eye. They did nothing. One girl told her coach she could not play basketball on the same team with a transgender teammate. So the coach told this girl to turn in her uniform. Charlotte, North Carolina was the latest battleground on the issue of gender identity and inclusivity. They instructed the teachers to stop calling the children boys and girls for the sake of inclusivity. Instead, they were told to call the kids students and scholars, even if the kids dumb as rocks. No, Billy, 3 + 2 does not equal 78, but by golly, you're a scholar. So that got me wondering what the gender inclusive word for stupid is, because there's a mess of it in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, one of the more disturbing incidents from the past year involved religious liberty bills. Sadly, in several states, Republican lawmakers betrayed Christians, political cowardice for the sake of political expedience. They caved into the militant activists and their big business cronies. Comply with the demands of the cultural radicals or else suffer the consequences. But North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory refused to bow down to the radicals. He refused to sacrifice the safety of women and children for political correctness. PayPal punished North Carolina by moving one of their offices, and yet they still do business in countries where homosexual behavior is illegal, including 5, according to Congressman Robert Pittenger, where the penalty is death. In Georgia, Mississippi, and Arkansas, Indiana, religious liberty bills have come under attack from Fortune 500 companies, from Coca-Cola and Delta to UPS, Marriott hotels. Instead of bending over for big business, the governor should have given Disney and all those other companies the heave-ho. And I've got a message for all those politicians, the ones who campaign as conservative Christians but govern as godless liberals. We've got a saying back home in the South: don't let the door hit you where the good Lord done split you. So here's the question we're facing. I told you folks, microaggressions. Take a BC powder. So what are we going to do about all this left-wing liberal wackadoodle nonsense? Well, first, we need to understand something about our public school system. They're being used against us. Why do you think we've seen such a rapid shift in the culture? The story about the 2016 presidential race is not about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. The story is about the millions of young Americans who supported an avowed socialist. Young Americans who believe they're entitled to what's in your pocketbook. Moms and dads, you need to pay attention to what they're teaching your kids in the schoolhouse. Look at their lessons, and if you see something, say something. Because trust me, folks, there's something rotten about Common Core. But the most important place that we can fight the culture war is in our homes. We must set a godly example for our children and our grandchildren. Teach them right from wrong. Support groups like Family Research Council and American Family Association and First Liberty. And let me tell you something about Kelly Shackelford. They are on these religious liberty attacks like a pit bull on a pork chop. So if you're in trouble, you need to give them a call. Ask your pastor in your church to start a team dedicated to staying informed on these very important issues. And let me say this. Those who cherish traditional American values must engage the political system and must vote on Election Day. Now, many of you know the story of the Houston Five, the pastors who nearly got thrown into jail because they refused to comply with a subpoena for their sermons. Now, here was the strange part of this story. I never could figure this out. How is it that a conservative town like Houston would elect such a liberal person as a mayor? So I started digging into this. Look, everybody in Houston, Texas is a Baptist. Even the Catholics are Baptist in Houston, Texas. I couldn't figure it out. Well, it turns out that on Election Day, the city's church-going crowd didn't bother to show up and cast their ballot. So the bad guy in Houston, Texas is not the liberal mayor. She doesn't know what she's doing. The bad guy is all the good church-going people of Houston, Texas, who refuse to engage the political process and do their duty as a citizen of the United States and vote. Now, let me say something about Hillary Clinton, and I hope I don't get choked up here. But yeah, they're going to write about that one. Folks, heaven forbid she gets elected, because I believe on her first day in the White House, she's going to drag out the nearest hammer, and she's going to do to the United States Constitution what she did to those BlackBerries and cell phones. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you who to vote for. That's between you and the good Lord. But let me tell you what I plan to do on Election Day. I plan on voting to protect the Supreme Court. And I plan on voting to secure our borders and protect the American working man and working woman. And I'm going to vote to save religious liberty and those precious unborn babies. That's what I'm going to do on Election Day. And folks, what we ought to be hollering on Election Day, if you're wanting a hashtag, it ought to be hashtag Never Hillary. President Reagan said this: freedom, we're just one generation away from extinction, but it may be just one election away. But my friends, I've got some good news to share with you, because I sense a stirring across our great land. Farmers and school teachers, construction workers and police officers, students that are defending their faith in the country and in the classrooms. And I was especially moved by a story from Brandon, Mississippi. The marching band had been pulled off the field. School leaders feared that one of the songs they played might violate a federal court order, the song, "How Great Thou Art." You might remember this story. The federal judge appointed by President Obama threatened to fine the school district $10,000 if they did anything remotely religious. So the marching band got benched. There was no halftime show. Friday night at the football game, at the end of the second quarter, fans, they sat quietly in the stands as the football team trotted off the field. And then suddenly, there was a voice, a lone voice, began humming a familiar tune, and others began to join in, the hairdressers and electricians and the moms and dads and the cheerleaders. The melody rose from below the press box until it became a mighty choir of hundreds rising up in defiance of their government, belting out the forbidden song, "Then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art. You see, they took a stand for religious liberty in the great state of Mississippi, and it's spreading like wildfire across this fruited plain. Bonhoeffer once said these words, "Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act." And I believe this is now a Bonhoeffer moment for every Bible-believing Christian in America. We can no longer be silent. We are to be civil, but we are not to be silent. We must roar like the lions. The time has come for all of us to stand together in this room, the Baptists and the Wesleyans, the Presbyterians and the Pentecostals, the Catholics and the Calvinists, and with one voice declare that we are still one nation under God. Now, in my closing moments, there's a scene in that wonderful film, We Were Soldiers, the Battle of the Ladrang Valley. Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore and his Army Rangers were surrounded. The enemy was advancing. All appeared hopeless. Joe Galloway was there, a United Press International reporter, caught in the melee. And when the bullets started flying, the reporter dropped to the ground. In the middle of the chaos and the carnage, Sergeant Major Basil Plumley stood resolute. And with a name like that, you would think nothing else. He walked over and delivered a swift kick of his boot and told the terrified journalist, "You can't take no pictures from down there, sonny." And then he tossed the reporter a rifle, but the reporter rejected the weapon. "I'm a non-combatant." The sergeant major replied, "There ain't no such thing today, sonny." My fellow countrymen, we are surrounded. The cultural bullets are flying. The enemies of freedom are advancing, and the time has come for all of us to stand resolute. You say, "Todd, but I'm not a fighter." Well, there ain't no such thing today, sonny. So all to my fellow gun-toting Bible clingers, I leave you with these words. Do not hide liberty's light under a bushel. No, hold it high and let it shine. And let the nations be glad. Let the people rejoice. And let the flame of freedom burn bright so that all the world can see that we are once again that shining city on a hill. Thank you, Family Research Council, and may God bless America. Thank you.
These are the days of America, brother.